Okay, so I want to start with something that almost nobody covered properly this week. While every camera in the world was pointed at the strikes, the ceasefire talks, the missile counts, something else happened quietly. Confirmation came through not from Tehran, not from a Telegram channel, but from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff himself, Dan Caine, speaking to Congress. He confirmed what analysts have suspected for months. Russia has been actively aiding Iran throughout this war, and that aid includes something very specific: satellite surveillance data shared directly with Iranian targeting cells. No press conference, no announcement, just an acknowledgement buried inside a much longer hearing. And I want you to sit with that for a second, because in geopolitics, the things that get a press conference are almost never the things that matter. The things that matter are the things that get done quietly, while everyone is looking somewhere else. On the surface, this looks like a footnote. Russia helping Iran. We've heard that before, right? It's been said for months. Easy to scroll past. But today, I want to show you why this confirmation. So, coming now, in this specific way, with this specific level of detail, is not a footnote. It's a preview. It's Russia showing its hand on exactly how the next war, whichever one that is, gets fought. So in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to walk you through three things. First, what Russia has actually been doing in concrete, specific terms, not vague cooperation, but actual operational details. Second, why this particular form of help is more dangerous than sending Iran missiles would have been. And third, what this tells us about the next conflict Russia is quietly preparing for, and it's not the one you think. Let's go. Let's start with the facts, because facts first, interpretation second. That's just good thinking. Here's what Dan Caine confirmed to Congress. Russian intelligence services provided Iran with satellite imagery of American and allied bases, specifically the joint UK-US base on Diego Garcia, NATO's Incirlik base in Turkey, and energy infrastructure across Saudi Arabia. Now think about that list for a second. These are not random locations. These are the exact bases that Iran subsequently struck, and it doesn't stop there. Russian intelligence also handed Iran a list of 55 separate energy infrastructure targets inside Israel. 55. Not 3, not 5. 55 specific coordinates prepared in advance, ready to be used. This is not Russia said some nice things about Iran at the UN. This is not Russia sells Iran some drone parts. This is Russia handing Iran a targeting package, the kind of product that normally takes years of dedicated reconnaissance to build, and doing it during an active shooting war against the United States. And Iran's own foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, has essentially confirmed this on American television. When pressed directly by NBC's Kristen Welker about whether Russia is providing intelligence, he didn't deny it. He said Russia is helping Iran in many different directions and called the cooperation a very good partnership. When asked for details, he said he didn't have any to give, which, if you've spent any time around diplomats, is not the sentence of a man who's lying about something not happening. It's the sentence of a man who's been told not to confirm something that is happening. Senator Adam Schiff, former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, was even more direct. He said, and I'm summarizing his point precisely, that Russia is providing Iran with intelligence specifically to help it target and kill American troops. A sitting U.S. senator said that out loud, on the record. Now, here's where I want to slow down, because this is the part everyone is missing. If Russia had simply shipped Iran a few hundred missiles, that would be a story for one news cycle. Missiles get used up, missiles get intercepted. Missiles are a finite, countable thing, and once they're gone, the story is over. Satellite intelligence is not like that. When you give a country real-time targeting data on an adversary's military infrastructure, you're not giving them a weapon. You're giving them eyes, and eyes don't run out. Eyes get better with use. Every successful strike refines the targeting mode. Every failed strike teaches the operators what to correct for next time. Think back to the analogy from the Vietnam playbook. The Soviet Union gave North Vietnam SA-2 missile systems that shot down American jets. That was a weapons transfer. What Russia is doing with Iran right now is a step beyond that. It's an intelligence-sharing relationship that effectively turns the Iranian military into a forward sensor node for Russian space-based assets. And there's a second layer to this that almost nobody is connecting. Russia has spent over 3 years running an enormous, sustained Shahed drone campaign against Ukraine. 3 years of real combat data, what gets intercepted, what gets through, what altitude works, what timing works, what radar signatures Western air defense systems are tuned to detect. Analysts looking at the sequencing of Iran's strike packages, hitting radar and command infrastructure first before the main wave, have noted this matches the complex raid architecture Russia has spent years refining over Ukrainian skies. That's not a coincidence. That's transferred operational doctrine. Iran isn't just getting Russian eyes, it's getting 3 years of Russian homework on how to beat the exact air defense systems America uses. Now, I want to add a financial dimension to this because intelligence sharing doesn't happen for free, even between strategic partners. While all of this has been going on, Russia and Iran have been quietly expanding maritime trade through the Caspian Sea, a body of water that, conveniently, almost no Western naval presence can touch. Combined with what analysts call a shadow fleet, ships operating under flags of convenience with falsified manifests, this corridor allows weapons, equipment, and goods to move between the two countries largely outside the view of American sanctions enforcement. Remember the toll booth model we've talked about before, with Iran charging fees in the Strait of Hormuz? This is the mirror image of that. It's not a public toll booth, it's a back door, and back doors don't show up in Treasury Department press releases. Here's the part of this story that I think deserves the most attention and gets the least. Russia's state nuclear company, Rosatom, has an ongoing relationship with Iran's nuclear program. This isn't new, it predates this war. But policy analysts in Washington are now explicitly recommending that any future negotiation over Iran's nuclear program include direct conditions on rolling back Rosatom's presence inside Iran. Think about what that recommendation implies. If American policymakers feel the need to write, and also, please get the Russians out of the nuclear facilities into a ceasefire framework, that tells you something about how deeply embedded that relationship already is. So lay it all out. Satellite targeting data flowing to Iranian forces. 3 years of Russian electronic warfare doctrine baked into Iranian strike planning. A sanctions-proof trade corridor through the Caspian. And a nuclear relationship deep enough that it needs its own clause in any peace deal. That's not Russia is sympathetic to Iran. That's Russia maintaining a fully operational, multi-domain support relationship with a country actively at war with the United States. And doing it without firing a single shot of its own, without losing a single Russian soldier, and largely without American retaliation. Now, I always want to give you the strongest version of the other side, because I never want you to just nod along with me. Here's the case that this is overblown. Russia is bogged down in Ukraine. Russia doesn't have the spare capacity to meaningfully alter the balance of this war. Satellite imagery is useful, but Iran's strike success rate, by America's own numbers, has still been limited. Most of what Iran fires gets intercepted or missed. Foreign Minister Araghchi himself, in earlier reporting, downplayed how much this cooperation has actually changed outcomes on the ground. And Russia's own spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, was on record back in March saying Russia had received no formal request from Iran for direct military assistance, suggesting the relationship is more rhetorical than operational. This is a fair argument. Russia is genuinely overextended. Resources are genuinely finite. But here's what that argument can't explain. Satellite tasking doesn't require troops. It doesn't require Russia to divert a single brigade from Ukraine. It costs Moscow almost nothing, and it costs Washington an enormous amount, both in the immediate military sense and in the much bigger sense of what it signals to every other regional actor watching this relationship in real time. And this is where I want to bring it all together. Now, everything we've just walked through, the targeting data, the doctrine transfer, the sanctions bypass, the nuclear entanglement, none of it requires Russia to win anything in the Middle East. Russia doesn't need Iran to defeat the United States. Russia just needs the United States to keep spending. Keep firing Patriot interceptors at $4 million a pop. Keep burning through Tomahawk stockpiles. Keep its carrier groups tied down in the Gulf. Every targeting package Russia hands Iran is, in effect, a small, deniable contribution to keeping America's attention and America's weapons inventory locked in the Middle East. And every month that continues is a month where American long-range munition stockpiles, the same ones needed to credibly deter a move on Taiwan, get a little thinner. Russia is not trying to win the Iran war. Russia is making sure nobody else's war ends either. Ukraine's, Iran's, or the one that hasn't started yet in the Pacific. So here's what I want you to watch in the next 72 hours. First, watch for any official American response to Caine's testimony. If the Pentagon quietly walks back or clarifies his statement, That tells you Washington doesn't actually want this relationship discussed publicly, which itself tells you they don't have a good answer for it. Second, watch the Rosatom question specifically. If any new ceasefire framework includes language about Russian nuclear personnel or contractors inside Iran, that confirms just how seriously American negotiators are taking this angle and how hard it will be to actually enforce. Third, watch Caspian shipping data if any independent trackers publish it. If volumes through that corridor keep climbing while the official blockade narrative continues, that's your confirmation that maximum pressure has a hole in it the size of an entire sea. For homework, go find Dan Caine's actual testimony to Congress, not a summary, the transcript. Look at exactly how he phrased the satellite imagery claim and compare it to how the Pentagon's public statements have described Russia's role in this war over the past few months. Ask yourself why the language changed and why now. And then ask yourself the question I want to leave you with. If Russia can do all of this, shift the outcome of a war on the other side of the world, and without firing a shot, without losing a soldier, and without even a press conference, what exactly is the cost of testing America anywhere else? I'll see you in the next one.